Well, on that note, let's invite Yashika as
She's
well.
there.
Ready?
Yeah. I'll yield some space.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, Yashika. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Uh,
Good to see you.
yeah, same here. We've been chatting about Aftab's journey as a dad raising Arya.
Mhm.
And I think it's an opportune time to hear your perspective as well. First, when you came to know that you were expecting, what was the feeling like? And then how did you guys celebrate?
So we actually found out when we were on a trip to India. This is right after he had graduated.
Okay.
And then we were celebrating. We were in India. We had a Europe trip coming up. So we were very excited. And the last thing on our mind was getting pregnant at the time. And then we found out. And this was like a week before our Europe trip. And I was scared because I wasn't prepared. I didn't know how many doctors I had to see after that. And then he was excited. He was so excited and happy. I was a roller coaster of emotions. Our entire trip to Europe was marked by me being very anxious about things
Mm-hmm.
because it turned out to be my first trimester. People smoke in Europe all the time. I was passive smoking for like 21 days. I knew I wasn't doing the best things. I was like, what am I doing? I should be back at home, resting, eating well, seeing doctors, and all of that. So it was a difficult, weird, scary, anxious kind of a time for me, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of my parenting, where I was constantly the one who was worrying about milestones, things, activities,
Okay. So
all
you
of
were
that.
anxious about the smoking part because you
The
were
passive smoking.
exposed
I
to
don't
passive
smoke, but it
smoking,
would be absolutely.
or you were anxious that, oh, I can't smoke anymore now, at
No,
least
no,
for the
no.
next
So
few.
I've never smoked. I was just anxious because you set foot in Europe and then public smoking is allowed, and I was passive smoking for my entire first month of pregnancy, and it wasn't supposed to be like that, and it wasn't planned to be like that.
So as a dad, what did Aftab do during those times that really helped your anxiety?
So I think dads are really fundamental right from the time that the baby is conceived.
Mm-hmm.
So my mother, I remember, called him the minute she found out I was pregnant and said, Afi, you are not going to let her lift any heavy loads from now on,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure she's eating healthy and all of that. So I
Okay.
remember we were in Europe and we had 3 big suitcases, and then he didn't let me touch it. And we were in 6 different cities, and the whole time he was lugging them behind me, putting them in trains, taking them off of trains. And then he put up with a lot of my nausea, a lot of my anxieties. So
Okay.
he was instrumental. I couldn't have got through it without his constant support in that time.
Got it. And I know it's an unfair question, but is it the physical help that the dad provides during that time, or is it the emotional help? Which one is more important for a to-be mother?
I think the physical help, I'll be honest.
I appreciate the
Mommies
honesty.
do all of the emotional work of having a kid. It only just, yeah, I'll be honest, it only just dawns on dads that they are dads when they actually hold the baby when
That's
it's
true.
born. So
That's true.
he has said it to me so many times. But through the pregnancy, when you find out you're pregnant and you know you have to carry the baby and you need to give a healthy baby, take care of yourself and all of that, I think dads more or less, you obviously provide the emotional support by being there. You obviously expect them to be there for the doctor's appointments, to rub your back when you're vomiting in the first trimester and all of that. But mostly, I think it's the physical help that I needed. I was like physically weak for the first time in my life, and I was like, I need someone to look after me right now.
Got it, got it. So the emotional help is a given, anyways, and we need the physical help. Got it.
Women are so emotionally strong. We don't need daddies for that.
It's also an abstract concept, I think, for men, because our bodies are not going through that change. We are not experiencing that, right? So it's very difficult for us to relate to what moms are going through in pregnancy, and especially the period after pregnancy, which is a harder period. Because so many women go through postpartum depression, which is undiagnosed. They don't understand it. It differs, how long it might be for anybody. Some women have it for a few days, months, some have it for longer. And as men, we can never really relate to it because fundamentally our bodies have not changed. But what changes is when the child comes out, suddenly then you have to adapt your life around it. It's not as much as moms have to go through, but I think that's why I keep telling her that as a father, you only realize the fundamental shift in the life when the kid comes out. But I think mothers start experiencing it the moment they know that the pregnancy is there.
The mother's instinct, right? Do you think dads also have a similar dad's instinct?
I think every daddy is different. So with Aftab, I can speak for him. He didn't. He
No, that's okay.
didn't.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
didn't.
we don't. Yeah.
It's just mothers create kids from scratch. So you have a gut feeling about them, about what's going on. Dads dads look up to moms a lot to figure out what's going on. So that happened with us a lot. So
I
Afi,
probably saw it on Netflix as a documentary, like about babies. I'm forgetting the name. Maybe it's called How Babies Are Born, or it's a full series. And there's research that says that there's a part of your brain called amygdala, which is where the emotion of fear gets generated, right? So let's say for animals who are being hunted, amygdala is the part of the brain that gets activated and drives fear response. And what the research, when they tracked the level of activity in the amygdala for moms and dads, I think what it revealed was that in moms it was a hyperactive part of the brain even before the baby was born, since the pregnancy, right? And the level of activity in the amygdala for dads only picks up when the baby is born, and it still remains at a slightly lower, much lower rate than it is for moms, right? So there is scientific evidence behind mother's instinct and mother's kind of picking up more things, and just picking up more things because the brain's more tuned to sensing dangers around the kid, whereas dads then tend to follow a little bit more. They tend to follow the mom's cue.
Got it, got it. Since we're speaking about Arya so much, let's think about it from her perspective. So, how is it living up to her expectations as she's growing up, both for Aftab, both for and for Yashika, you?
It's a challenge, right? Because you have a child who looks up to you and has such a high opinion of you, right? I think we were joking with her the other day, and we were calling each other like silly names. And then suddenly she goes like, "No, don't call Papa that." And so I'm like, "Oh my God!" Right? Like this is like a lot of responsibility on me now, because she thinks so highly of me, so I have to be very conscious of my actions. One of the things that actually Yashika taught me very early, which I think was a great lesson for me, and it's I think it's a great lesson for all dads, is that you are the first male person in a daughter's life. Even I think holds true for a son as well. You're the first male person in their life, right? It's more true for daughters, because we are talking about gender here, right? How you act will define the expectations of how she will expect other men to behave with her, right? And so you have to act in a way that's responsible, that's caring, right? That is not at all abusive, um, and that sets the tone, because when she steps out in the world, that should be her expectation, that that's how other men should treat me. And if somebody's not treating me, then that's not a person I want to engage with. I think that's very, very important. That was a great learning for me. I was like, wow, it took me a while to internalize it. But that's a wonderful point, right? So you have to be very conscious of what you're doing in front of her, what language you're using, what you're saying. And also the thing with kids is you'll realize that the things you don't want them to pick up, they'll pick up those very quickly.
oh yeah.
Right? So, I mean, if you randomly say even something like, if you're saying something to each other and you use a word that is not appropriate language, that's the first word they'll pick up. So you have to be very conscious.
What does this mean?
So when you raise a child, you have to be very respectful. You have to be very tolerant of them, patient with them. You have to respect their wishes, always be ready to lend a ear to them and all of that. So again, in this, I would set the tone and he would implement.
Okay.
So we would have discussions around what do we want her to be okay with? What should her level of tolerance to people be? And then we set the tone at home, and then she expects the same thing when she goes out.
That's a great perspective, especially in today's world.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest eye-opening things was our respect for our own parents went up manifold after Arya came into our lives, right? Because we started appreciating how much effort they put into us when we were young. My mother never talked about my childhood openly. My dad was more emotional. My mother's not a very emotional person. She doesn't express emotions a lot. But when we went to India last year, and Yashika and her just started talking, Yashika mentioned like Ria was giving her some feeding trouble or something. And then my mom just opened up. She was like, "She's his dad's daughter. Why wouldn't she give you feeding trouble? I had so much trouble feeding Aftab when he was young." And then she started on this whole diatribe against me, saying that, oh, when you were, you didn't sleep a single night till you were like 9 months old, and I had to hold you in my arms the whole night. I used to walk, and you would throw up your milk, and we took you here, and we had to make special things. And then I realized that, hey, like a lot of trouble that I gave to my parents in my first year is probably similar to like what Arya causes, maybe less actually. And then the other part of it is that if I look back now, like the way I behave, right, some of my mannerisms, some of my values are very mirroring to what I saw my dad do. So implicitly, I imbibed a lot of things from him, right? Which is where I said that, and that's just because I saw my dad so much all around, right? And I'm now very conscious that like what I'm doing, Arya probably will imbibe some of those things as well. So you have to be very careful and cautious about what you're talking and how you're speaking.
It's also, it has such a profound impact on how a child turns out. Like a very strict parent is probably going to have a very disciplined child, but someone who lacks confidence. Parents who are really liberal with their children, and you have to be cautious of that, are going to have children who are really self-confident, always speak their mind, but lack the discipline that a strict parent's child would have. We have really struggled to find a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we came up with the roles of good cop, bad cop, because we want to be a mix of both, because we don't want to be too strict, we don't want to be too lenient. But I don't think we have completely zeroed in on the recipe of perfect parenting, like this level of strict and this level of liberal. I mean, I think it's still work in progress. We don't know what's the perfect balance.
Okay, I see.
But the initial 2 years, we were like
we
very, very careful about everything. If we were to have another kid, we would probably enjoy that kid a lot more.
That's probably true.
Because with your first kid, you're so anxious the whole time. I don't think you really enjoy them. I think everybody has seconds and thirds just to have a good time finally. Because it all turns out well, and kids are a lot more resilient than we think.
Speaking of second and third kids, are there any other on the way?
Well, we are hoping to have another one sometime.
Once we think he's a little bit more independent.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck for that. With that said, let's get to the final question for today. Since this channel is called Dads as Dudes, this question is more for Aftab. Aftab, do you feel you're more a daddy material or you're a dude material? We'll hear your perspective first.
I was never a dude material. I think I'm a daddy material. I'll actually, some of my friends actually tell me that, we are not surprised that you didn't find the role of a dad, too much of a difficult fit for you, because they give me examples. They're like, we used to see you talking to, juniors in school, younger kids, 4 or 5 years younger, and you had this very protective instinct around them that you would tell them, hey, be careful on the bus, don't get off a running bus. This is how you study this subject now.
He was always very daddy.
So they were like, you had this, fatherly instinct in you always. So we are not surprised that, you don't find the role too much of a difficult role to fit into. So yeah, I don't think I was a dude ever.
Okay. But Yashika, let me ask you.
Yeah.
So don't daughters at some point when they're growing up, etc., maybe teenage or adult life, they want their dads to have some kind of a dude vibe, especially in front of their friends. So is that true?
I think so. I think it's true for all kids. I think once you hit teenage, from what I've heard, it's a really difficult time in your life. I think infancy and teenage, as any parent would tell you, are the two most challenging times of a child's life. And any teenager wants their parents to be cool. They want them to be this and that and all of that. But Affy was always a daddy. And I have a really simple kid. I think Arya has all of Affy's genes, and she's like a really simple kid. Will she expect him to be a dude at any point in time? Hard to say. Like my dad was perfect to me growing up. So I'm hoping that her daddy will be sufficient for her growing up. And then if she wants a dude, I think I'm going to step in and say, daddy will be daddy. Find yourself another dude.
That's a good one. Yeah. Or maybe Aftab will find that perfect balance. Who knows?
I don't know. Maybe get a tattoo. I'll wear a baseball cap the other way. Put some kind of a chain around my neck.
God, I hope not.
I can be dude for a while.
You gotta talk that.
There are different styles of being a dude, right? So maybe I can then show off some of my education in front of her friends.
Yeah, that's very rude-like, for sure.
The last tidbit I want to leave the chat with is that, especially for a to-be parent, is that it's going to be the most challenging journey of your life, but it's also going to be the most exhilarating.
Okay.
So you're going to discover yourself in the process. Like we discovered who we were as we raised someone else.
Okay.
So people say kids are the reason you want to give up, but they're also the reason you want to keep going.
Mhm.
So it's hard to put it to words. It's like agony and ecstasy together, but beautiful journey.
That's very, very well said. Very beautifully put. Well, I think that's an excellent note to end this interview. Thank you so much for your.
So much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
It was so fun chatting with you.
All right, same here. Bye.
Good luck with your channel.
Thanks.